Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar series for the Graduate Study Abroad in the United States. I'm so excited to be here. Tonight will be my webinar on developing a CV for graduate school. Thank you so much for coming on time, and I hope that this session will be useful to you. A little bit about myself. My name is Claire Lee, and I am the English Language Fellow placed with the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo and with the Tokyo Metropolitan Board of Education. I have experience in teaching junior high school in the United States, as well as in countries such as South Africa, Vietnam, the Philippines, and Japan. And my graduate degree, my Master's of Education, was from Harvard Graduate School of Education. So to move on to today's objectives, by the end of this session, you will have a chance to understand the difference between a resume and a CV. And you should be able to write your own academic CV when applying to graduate schools. We will cover what is a CV and look at the differences between a CV and a resume. We'll also talk about why do we need a CV for a graduate school application. We often associate CVs or resumes with work, right, when we're applying to jobs, but actually they are also important for graduate schools in the United States. We'll then look at some examples of what should be in an academic CV, and at the end of today's session, we'll have a chance for some Q&A. If you have any questions, please do add them to the chat box. I will be happy to answer them as we go along, or if I don't get a chance to answer, I will answer them at the end of the session today. This session will also be recorded and posted on the U.S. Embassy YouTube channel. I will put that link in the chat box in just a second. And you will have access to the PowerPoint slides at the end. So you'll get a chance to see the QR code for accessing the PowerPoint. So before we get started, I just want to ask everyone where you're coming from and why you are here. So for example, I would say, Claire, I am in Tokyo right now, and maybe I might be here for understanding why do I need a CV for graduate school. So just take a moment in the chat box to share who you are, where you're from, and your purpose for being here. Do you want to apply to grad school? Were you confused as to why the topic of CVs was even on this list? Maybe you already have a CV, but you want to see why, how to make it better. Welcome, Raman, from Borneo. Oh, I love Borneo. Such a beautiful place. Bilegun, Bulatan Bar. Good to see you from Mongolia. I hope that it's warming up there now. Great to see that many of you are considering applying for PhDs or master's degrees. Shasha, welcome. Great. From Indonesia, Rico from Tokyo. Welcome. Wonderful. So some of you are looking at Fulbright scholarships. Some of you are looking at exchange programs. So this is not only for doing the full graduate studies, but you may need to have a CV for even exchange programs. And definitely for the Fulbright, they request that you include your CV as well. Awesome. Welcome. I love seeing people from all over. Thank you. Awesome. Great. So, what is a CV? And I see this great answer for telling you are qualified and competitive to enroll in a graduate course. Excellent. So that is absolutely right. A CV is one part of your application that you will submit either for an exchange program, a graduate program, whether it is a master's or a PhD, or if you are applying for a program like the Fulbright program, they will request a CV. And a CV is short for curriculum vitae. And this is a document used by employers or schools to see your suitability for a particular job or for a program. So why do you actually need one? Most people are a little bit confused and think these are for jobs, right? We associate CVs or resumes with jobs, not with graduate schools necessarily. But actually, they are a common document required by not all programs, but many programs, especially if you are applying for a PhD program. It's also a great way to keep track of your accomplishments. So I always recommend regularly updating your CV at least every 6 months so you remember what you've accomplished and you can keep track of what you have done. So that when you do apply for a job, for graduate school, for some position, you have all of that information. So in thinking about, okay, some schools require CVs, some do not. I went online to see what universities may require CVs. So there are a lot of big universities, like the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. There are some programs in the University of California schools. So these are like UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC San Diego. All of the PhD programs at Stanford University require a CV. Harvard Business School also requires a CV. So know that it is often required by many different programs. So what is the difference between a CV and a resume? Any ideas you can share in the chat box? What is the difference between those two? You may have heard both terms, and some people think they're the same thing, but actually they're not the same thing. They're very similar, but not the same. So any ideas for what are some differences between the two? Please feel free to share your ideas in the chat box. Any ideas? CV versus resume. What's the difference? Or you can say in the chat box that you don't know. Okay, so thank you for these answers. Some of you say no idea. Great, now you are going to learn what the difference is. CV is short, resume may be longer. Another says CV is more academic than a resume, but I haven't seen any CVs. CV is a detailed list of a person's academic and professional achievements, and resume is concise that highlights the skills and qualifications for a specific position. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your answers. So while both CV and a resume, the job of both of them is to summarize your major activities and achievements. Resumes are often more focused on professional and work-related achievements as well as work history. So resumes are used for mostly working purposes. An academic CV, on the other hand, looks at your educational experience, academic background, and more around your academic experience, such as research, teaching. So think of a CV as a longer version of a resume that includes more of an academic focus. It may include things like your research interests, relevant work experience, any publications you have, honors or awards. And for grad school, the CV helps indicate the extent of your background in the field and how much potential you have academically. So schools use CVs to gauge how successful you may be as one of their students. So here are some of the differences. So we have resume here and CV here. Resumes are very short. They tend to be only 1 to 2 pages in length. Usually if it's more than that, potential employers will not look at the rest of it, right? They're very, very concise. The purpose is to really concisely summarize your, especially work experiences. It is structured with sections like a summary, work experience, education, and typically it's tailored to a specific job or industry. So for example, I have a couple versions of my resume. One resume focuses mostly on my teaching experience, right? So what different subjects I've taught, the teaching roles I've had. Another resume I have focuses on my curriculum development and writing experience. So how I have created lessons or created curricula. I have another resume that focuses more on projects, educational projects that I've managed and highlight that. So each of these have a different purpose and are for a slightly specific job or slightly different jobs that are within kind of the sphere of education. And we see resumes, especially in the US, for work. The order of a resume is reverse chronological. So the most recent is up top and the oldest is on the bottom. Now, if you have lots of experience, you may cut out certain jobs and only focus on the most relevant and recent jobs. On the other hand, a CV, a curriculum vitae, is multi-paged. It is often much longer than a resume. I would say probably should not be longer than 10 pages though, okay? It is comprehensive. It is a summary of the academic and professional achievements, but it should include a lot of more information than a resume does. So think of a resume as kind of like the concise, skinny version of the CV, which is much more detailed. It has many sections. Similar to the resume, it will include education and work experience, but depending on what it's used for, you may also include things like research experience, publications, presentations, and awards. And the emphasis is not about a job, it's about your academic experience, and especially if your going for a PhD where you're going to be doing research, they want to see, do you have any previous research experience? Now, it's commonly used in academic settings or research settings, and it is often chronological. You can organize by like category or themes to highlight certain academic achievements or skills, but even within those themes, you want it to be reverse chronological, meaning the most recent is on top. Okay, so now that we understand the difference between a resume and a CV, what do we actually put in a CV if we are applying for a grad school program in the US? There are many different sections that are included. Some of them are very similar to a resume. Of course, you should start with your contact information. You may include your research interests and career goals, although those are not required. And then you definitely want to include your educational qualifications. This should also include things like what university it was, what major, what degree. And then you may have sections, I mentioned this already, research experience, as well as any teaching experience, professional membership skills, and volunteer work. Now, not all PhD programs or master's programs are the same, so you want to make sure and tailor that CV specific to that program because you want to emphasize the relevant skills and experiences that you have. So let's dive into some examples. Okay, so here's the first section. I don't have the full document all together because it would be very difficult to read, but this would be the first part of your document. You want to have your first and last name. Now, for those of you who live in countries like Japan or Korea, typically your family name is first, right? And then your given name. You want to make sure that in your application and in your CV, you are putting your given name and then your family name, right? So for example, my name is Claire Lee. Lee is my family name. That is a name that all of my family members share. And then Claire is my given name, which in America we call our first name because we use it first. So I would put Claire Lee, even though in Japan, I am referred to as Lee Claire. You'll also want to include your address, your email, and your phone number. After that, you should have your education. Oh, also, it's possible if you would like to put your LinkedIn profile or any other professional profile, you can add that in as well. Do not include things like social media profiles, Instagram, Facebook. This should be professional. Then you have a header here, which says education. Notice that this header is bigger than the other sections to show that it is separate and that it is kind of a header. You're going to list your degrees in reverse chronological order with your most recent education first. Whether or not you have received the degree yet. So for example, let's say you are still in your bachelor's program, you can say something instead of graduated and then the date. You can say intended date of graduation, June 2024, for example. Now, things that you should include are the title of your degree, the university, the location of the university, the date you're supposed to graduate, of intended completion or where you actually completed the degree, and if you'd like to include your GPA, you can include your GPA, which stands for grade point average. Do not include the start date of your degree. You don't have to include that. You can just include the date of graduation. You can also include the major or minor, if applicable, or the department name. So going back to GPA, GPA or grade point average is very specific to the United States. Some other countries may use this, but it is on a 4-point scale. So typically, out of 4.0. You can share what your kind of grade point average is for your university, but if you use one that is slightly different from the one that's used in the US, make sure it's very clear what the scale is. So if it's a scale out of 10, you can do that. Or if you are going to explain, you might need to just add a little bit of explanation, like this is the highest accolade that you can receive, or it is out of 10 points, whatever it is. Okay. Do not include your high school. So if you are applying for a master's or PhD program, you should either be very soon going into your finishing your bachelor's degree or have some sort of undergraduate degree already received. Typically, PhD programs or master's programs do not accept you if you do not have your bachelor's degree yet, or any sort of undergraduate degree. Now, there is a mistake on this. Can anyone notice what is the mistake here? Any ideas? Awesome, Yuki. Not in chronological order. Yes. Notice that this is 2020 and this is 2022. Remember, I said it should be in reverse chronological order. So actually, these two should be switched. This should be on top, number 1, and this should be second, number 2. Excellent job, everyone. That's right. So the most recent is on top. So these two will switch. Okay, let's go on to what is commonly the next section in an academic CV, especially when applying to graduate schools. This next section is research experience. Now, as a graduate student, you will probably be conducting research, probably in your master's degree, and most definitely in a PhD program. So it's important to include any research that you have done. You want to list all of the academic research posts that you served if you have done any, been a researcher, or if you have any other significant experience, you may want to include this. So if you have worked at a research lab, right? Or if you are a research associate or assistant. Now, some of you may say, I don't have research experience. I've never worked in a lab. Does that preclude me then from applying for a graduate program? And the answer is, that's okay. You can even include research projects that you have participated in, even if the project is very small or you did it as part of your undergraduate degree. If you don't have any research experience at all, you can include some of those projects, right? So notice that this formatting is different from this formatting, and that's because I'm showing you a couple of different ways to format. Notice that this title is in all caps, research experience, and there is a bar underneath to separate this section. Now, you'll include the position title and the department, and you're going to go ahead and include what exactly did you do? Did you design? Did you collect data? Did you contribute to analyzing data? Did you work with other faculty members, right? And it's okay if this research project is something like a thesis paper, right? If it included research. You'll also include the date. Typically, the dates are placed on the right-hand side, so they're right-hand aligned. And once again, it is in reverse chronological order, meaning the most recent is going to go up top. How about informal research for personal reasons? That's a really great question. I think that depends. I would hesitate to put it in your CV unless you have a chance to publicize that research, right? So let's say it wasn't with a lab, but you conducted, for example, like you're a classroom teacher and you conducted some action-based research in which you compiled some data and you analyzed that data and maybe you submitted it for publication somewhere, then that's, I would say yes. But if it's something very informal, then maybe I wouldn't include that. So I think it depends on the research that you're talking about particularly. Thanks for that question, Chris. Okay, the next section may be focused on specifically teaching or mentoring experience. And this is particularly with a PhD program because you will probably have to teach some courses, some undergraduate courses as a PhD candidate. So universities like to see that you already have some sort of experience either as a mentor, an instructor, or a teaching assistant, even if it is not a full-time teaching position or it's something where you were kind of a leader in some way, then that might be also something that you can include. Now, this section is not required. I would suggest it more for if you are applying for a PhD program. Okay. So notice again, section heading, very clearly the title or section heading. And then notice that each job or position is bolded. So it's very clear what these positions are: teaching assistant, for introduction to structural engineering, instructor, graduate mentor. This person has a lot of experience apparently. You're going to want to include the institution, the dates, remember on the right-hand side, and then bullet points of what you did, right? So one important aspect of your CV or resume is to quantify, meaning add numbers. Add numbers in order for the person who's reading your resume or CV to see what the impact was. However, do not make up numbers, okay? Make sure that they are accurate numbers. So looking at this section on teaching and mentoring, what are some of the quantities, the numbers that you see? You can add them in the chat box. And in the meantime, I will answer of Steve, your question, which one is better to include for applying to a master's scholarship, CV, or resume? That's a really great question. I think it depends on the scholarship. The scholarship will tell you what they are looking for. If it is tied to a master's program, so for studying, I would lean more towards a CV since they want to see your academic accomplishments. But once again, it depends based on the scholarship. And the scholarship will tell you, or should tell you, please include a resume of no more than 3 pages or a CV of no more than 10 pages or whatever. Okay, so numbers that we see on this page include the number of students. Excellent. So we see, okay, numbers of students, 15 to 25, 75. Yes. You could also write the number of courses you've taught, but you need to make sure that throughout your CV, you are quantifying. Try to put numbers, right? How many hours did you put in? How many students were there? How many courses did you teach? How many publications did you have? How many blah, 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 right? Awesome. Okay. Another section that is often included in CVs are publications, if you have any publications. So for publications, you want to use the format that is appropriate for your field. For example, MLA, APA style, Harvard, Chicago, right? So for example, if you are looking to do a PhD in psychology, you should use APA, right? Because that is the standard format that is appropriate for the field of psychology. So you can see here, this person has a few publications, and notice that their name is bolded to make it stand out, right? Make it very clear who, where they are. You may want to divide your publications into different sections. We have peer-reviewed publications and other publications. So peer-reviewed publications tend to carry a little more weight in academia. And so if you have peer-reviewed publications, or if you have both, you may want to use subheading. So you might write peer-reviewed publications and then separately other publications. This will help distinguish the sections for whoever is reading your CV and make it very clear which ones are peer-reviewed and which ones are not. Remember, peer-reviewed publications are those that go through a vetting process where there is a board of reviewers who are experts in that field, who are reading your publication, whether it's typically a research paper, and are making sure that it is up to academic standards in order for it to be published. If you don't have publications, don't worry, that's okay as well. Honors and awards. Actually, there is a question. Back to the work experience section. Should we translate institutions, university names from our local language to English? This is a really great question. What I would say is it depends on a number of things. Typically, your degree, right, will be in the local language. When you apply to a graduate school program, you will need to get that document translated officially. So you can't just like translate it yourself and say like this is what it means. You need to get a translator to like certify that this is the translation of the document. Or some institutions, they will translate it and like send a letter for you and say this is what your degree means. For example, my degree from Wellesley College is in Latin. It is not in English. And so I had to ask my institution, please, can you send me a letter verifying what my degree certificate actually says, since it's not in English and it's in Latin. So they were able to give me that. Okay. Now, if you have that, I would just follow whatever they translate that as so that it's the same. If your institution uses like a similar alphabet, then you can use that as well. But if it is using a different writing system or a different script, I would either write the name phonetically or think about, okay, what is the way that it would be written in English? So I would definitely Google that, like Google the institution and what is kind of the English name of that institution. And sometimes it will be just the name of the institution phoneticized in English. Sometimes it'll be the translation of the institution. I hope that helps. So there's no one right answer for that. It depends on your institution's name. Okay, another question about publications, going back to that. What about publications we have in our personal blog or portfolio in creative sectors? Great question. If those publications are related to your the program you are applying to, for example, you are applying to an MFA, a Master's of Fine Arts, and you want to show your creative writing, then include those publications. If, however, it is not related to the research topic or the PhD or master's topic that you feel that you are looking to study, I would exclude those. Don't just add anything because you want to have a publications section. The topics of these should be either somewhat related to the field that you are interested in, or is a professional publication of some sort. Okay, honors and awards. Wow, this person has so many honors and awards. I don't even have that many honors and awards. Include any and all honors and awards you may have received. These can be from undergraduate or other awards, for example, fellowships. It can be awards you received from your university. It can be awards for grants that you have received. So it is up to you what you can include, right? So if you can add some honors and awards, please do so here, because you're showing that you can stand out from your peers, and that this will help the institution have some kind of faith in you. And then skills. You may also want to include skills, right? Accolades. Yes, that's right. Honors, awards, and accolades. Those are all things that would kind of fall in the same section. Or you can separate them out into separate sections if you would like. Skills that you list should be relevant to the program you are applying for. You are not going to write skills like, I can juggle. That's a great skill to have, but unless you are going for a master's degree in something related to juggling, do not include that. These skills should be professional skills and should be relevant to the program that you are applying for. This can include laboratory skills, technology skills, specific computer programs that you are proficient with, and language skills. Right? So things like, for example, using nanomaterial synthesis techniques, or maybe you have experience with specific tools and technology, right? So are there specific tools that you can use? What about data analysis or software engineering skills or computer skills, right? You may also want to include your language skills, right? So in addition to English, what other languages do you speak? Write or listen, are able to listen in. Another question about the honors and awards, going back to that, how old should they be? Should it be within 10 years? No, not necessarily. So let's say you earned your bachelor's degree over 10 years ago and you received some awards during your undergraduate studies. You can include those awards. Okay, that's totally fine. Or if it's over 10 years. Remember, unlike a resume, which is very concise and usually is only the last 10 years, CVs are much longer comprehensive documents. So you absolutely should be including awards that you received, even if it is over 10 years old. Great questions, everyone. I love them. Keep them coming. Okay, other sections that you can include in your CV. Include things like research publications. Okay, I already said awards and honors. Any grants or fellowships that you've received. If you have attended or presented at any professional conferences, you can include those. We mentioned teaching experience and research experience, language and skills, and then you can also have a section on your jobs and previous experience. You definitely want to include that if you have been out of academia and research for a while. So it's okay that you don't have extensive experience in research or in publications. You can show, though, through your jobs how it's prepared you for a graduate program, right? So everything in the document should really highlight to the reader, how does this job prepare you to be part of the graduate program? Now, there's a few things you should absolutely not include for a CV in the United States. This includes personal details like your gender, your religion, your age or birthday. You should absolutely not include a photo of yourself. This is very common in many Asian countries, but it is absolutely not okay to include in resumes or CVs in the United States. The reason being is that reviewers or employers don't want to be seen as biased, and so including a photo may bias the reviewers or employers. And so please do not include a photo of yourself in your CV or resume. Do not include your nationality. Your hobbies. Do not include references. This is something that some people say, include your references. References meaning people who the university or the employer can contact to ask about your background and to see that you are a good fit for the program. These are not included in the CV or in a resume. these should be separate in a separate document. And probably when you are filling out the application, either they will ask for a reference letter, which you can watch the video given by Tom about reference letters that was given a few weeks ago, or they will ask for the contact details of the reference, and you'll add that directly into their application form. Do not include your salary history or other personal information. Okay? Remember, CVs are professional academic documents. They should be professional, right? So it's really important to not include too many personal details in there. Okay, whatever formatting choices that you make sure to keep it consistent. From some of the examples that we've seen, you can see that there are different uses of bold, italics, underlining, and capitalization to highlight the key information. But whatever you do, make that consistent. So if you bold all of the titles of your positions, make sure to bold that throughout for every position. If you italicize the company or the universities that you went to, make sure you italicize all of those throughout the document. Reverse chronological order, most important information and most recent information on the top. Now, it's important as well to include the most important information on the top left of each entry, right? And the associated dates on the right. So you can see here, like here, sorry, not that one, here. Here's a good example. The top right, this is the most important information, the position, right? And then here on the left, the dates. Sorry, on the right, the dates. On the left, the most important information. Now, CVs tend to have many pages, so you can also number the pages with your last name as well in the footer. I like to put it in the footer rather than the header, but it's up to you. You can choose if you would like to put it on the header or the footer. You also want to include bullet points. So these are not paragraphs. This is not an essay. A CV should be very easy and quick to read. You should be able to scan through the CV, at least the first few pages of a CV, in 1 to 2 minutes and be able to get the main points. In fact, that's a really good exercise to do with the CV or a resume, is time yourself for 1 minute, ask a friend to read through and have them read through and see what were their impressions of your CV or resume. So the layout of the CV, should you put some graphic elements? I would recommend against graphic elements unless you are applying for more creative positions or creative graduate degrees, because they tend to look less professional. So I keep it simple, very, very simple and straightforward. Another important point is the use of strong verbs. So CVs, do not use paragraph, remove the I, start with the strong active verb. Now, I want to show you this document. This is a great document put together by Harvard on how to create CVs as well as strong CV verbs. Let me just share screen so everyone can see this. And the QR code will direct you to this. Okay, so this is from their Office of Career Services on CVs and cover letters. But mainly what I wanted to highlight was this page, describe your experiences with these action verbs. So you can see there are many, they're categorized like achievement, administrative, communicative, research, analytical. So these are all different verbs that fall under this category, like assessed, compared, critiqued, defined, derived, detected, determined, etc. These are strong verbs. It's very important to use strong verbs in your CV. This document also includes, here's an example of a CV. So you can follow this formatting. As you can see, it includes education, research interests, publications, fellowships, awards, presentations. Exhibitions is one if you are doing, for example, like a Master's of Fine Arts or something in the creative field, teaching experience, research experience, etc. Okay, so you can also look at a couple of different examples of CVs there. So I strongly recommend using strong words, strong verbs specifically. So I've also put the link in the chat box, or you can scan the QR code. So let's actually look at, we looked at this already, teaching and mentoring experience. What are the verbs that you see? Please add them in the chat box. What verbs do you see being used? Integrated. Excellent. Yeah, we see here integrated. Prepared. Excellent. Mentored. Graded. Oh, I think it's guided. Guided. Yes. Any others? Many more. Yes, many more. Targeted. Yes, absolutely. So you can see that every single bullet point starts with a strong verb. Prepared, created, recognized, integrated, explained, mentored, guided. So you too should, in your CV, start every bullet point in your descriptions with a strong verb. This shows that you are the one doing some action, right? And it will help you seem like you are proactive and you are doing many things, right? They want to see what you've done in your CV. Okay, final tips. Match your CV to the university program you are applying for. What do I mean? Read the website page about the program. Look for keywords that you can use. What are some of the main words about the program? See where in your CV you can add in those words. You can use a template. You don't have to start from scratch. There are many templates online. If you type in CV template, hundreds upon thousands will come up. You can ask ChatGPT to make you a template. Or you can look at the document from Harvard University on CVs and cover letters and use that as a template. Because everyone is different, I didn't want to give just one template because there are so many and it changes based off of personal preference and which program you are applying for. Make sure to proofread and edit. There should be absolutely no spelling or grammar mistakes. You can use color, but to be honest, I do not recommend using color, and definitely do not use a lot of colors. Quantify, 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 quantify. Put in numbers. Make sure you are truthful. This is not the time to exaggerate and lie. about your accomplishments. But also make sure you are actually talking about your accomplishments. Don't be humble in your CV. And finally, I always recommend saving the document as a PDF because the formatting, depending on the computer, may change if someone opens it up. So I always recommend save it as a PDF and submit it that way. Okay, here are my references, and you may access the presentation through this QR code here. We have a few minutes to answer questions, so please go ahead and feel free to add them in the chat box, or if you would like, you can unmute your mic. So I've heard that if we are still working in the present, we need to make it present participle. What do you think about that? Yes, that's correct. So if you have finished the whatever action, whatever role it is, for example, this one, the assumption is that this position is finished. These are all past simple tense because they have been completed and they are done. So they are fully in the past and should be past simple. Now this one says to the present. Now here, if you use past tense, it means that in your role, you have done that and you've finished that. So for example, created and graded course assessments, that means you've done that and you've finished that in your role. If you're still doing something, you can use the present tense, right? So I would instead say preparing lectures, creating and grading assessments, right? So if you are currently still doing that, make sure, yes, you do need to, it should not be in the past tense. I see a hand up. Tanti. Oh, sorry, I accidentally muted you. Sorry, can you unmute again? Are you able to?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity and also for your explanation. It's very, what is it? Thoughtful for me. So actually, I have submitted my CV. So this year I'm applying for PhD Fulbright scholarships, and I have submitted the CV, but it's okay, no problem. I'm very glad to attend this webinar so that I can reflect what I have written on my CV. I have questions actually so actually the requirements to submit the CV or to write the CV is that I have to write the CV not more than 4 pages. And I think that's a challenge for me because actually, yeah, we have we have to we want to convince, right? We want to convince that we have kinds of achievements, workshop and trainings that we have attended, so that they will consider our CV. So what is your strategy actually
Great
to
question.
make
to
make
make
CV?
it fit? Yeah.
Yes,
So
that's
you're
right.
absolutely right. Some universities or programs will say the CV cannot be more than X number of pages, 5 pages, 4 pages, whatever pages, right? So that's a really great question. Thank you for asking that. How do we trim down our CV? We've done our CV. It's 8 pages long. We look at the application and it says only 4 pages. What do we do? In that case, it's really important to consider which parts of the CV are least important and can be trimmed, and which ones are the most important and most relevant to that program, right? So for example, if you are applying for a PhD in engineering, and as a side hobby, you also do creative writing. So you have some publications of your poetry. That does not relate to the PhD program as much, right? So if you need to cut space, you can trim that. So what I would do is seriously look through, cull down, say, how related is this to my PhD program or my master's program or whatever program it is? How connected is it? How important is this? Number one. Number two, you will then cut out things that are a little bit older. Of course, we put the newest first because they're typically the most relevant, right? So if our CV is too long, we may need to cut out some older positions, awards, etc. So those are the two main suggestions that I would give. Other questions I see in the chat box. Thank you so much, Tanti, for that question. Do all universities have the same template? No, they don't. So university requirements for CVs will differ. As Tanti said, some say it should be 4 pages. Some give you a larger limit or don't give you a limit. And so it really depends on the university. And in fact, the order also depends, can vary. So there's not one specific template or way to do a CV, which does, I understand, make it difficult. Is it permissible to include commentary or analyst experience in policy, in the news media, in a CV for PhD in the social sector? I think that would make sense. What you want to do in that case is make sure that any of the bullet points, so for example, let's say you were looking at something like this, any of the bullet points will help relate to the skills that are relevant for a PhD in the social sector. There are many transferable skills, right? And probably your experience as an analyst in policy is going to support whatever you're doing for your PhD. Highlight those particular things. Okay, you don't have to write everything you've ever done for those positions. You want to highlight specifically the skills and the accomplishments that are related to, that may relate to that PhD program or are skills that would be useful to that program. I know we're over time, so thank you everyone, but I'm going to answer a few more questions so you can stay and stay on if you would like, but I'll stay for a few more minutes to answer questions. Are there any other ways to match my CV to the university I'm applying for? Yes. What I would do is go to that university program website. For example, if I would like to apply to the UCLA Applied Linguistics PhD program, I will go to that website and that web page. I will look at what kinds of courses, what kinds of things they're offering. And then I will see which ones of these are things that I have some related experience in, okay? What you can also do is look and see their faculty. So especially with PhD programs, it's not just about, oh, I want to go to this university. It's about finding an advisor who is related, who does research in a related field to the field you are interested in. So what you want to do is look at that faculty member's profile, see what kinds of research they've done, see what interests they have, and use similar vocabulary. So identify maybe 1 or 2 specific lecturers or faculty members that you would want to study under and use the vocabulary from their profile into your CV. Let's see. Few questions about recording of this session. Yes, this session will be available on the U.S. Embassy YouTube channel. I'm just going to go ahead and put the link here. Please give it a few days, as they do have to review the recording and edit it before posting it. But if you go to the U.S. Embassy YouTube channel, and then you go to all videos, it will have the videos in reverse chronological order. So you should scroll through and see it in one of the top ones. Part 4 and 5, yes, those are still waiting to be posted. Sorry, it's taking a little bit of time. There's a lot of webinars in a short period of time, so it's still in the process of being reviewed, but those should be posted shortly. I know those have not yet been posted. Other questions? There was one more I wanted to answer. What if our previous academic background is not related to the graduate program we're applying to? That's totally fine, because once again, there are transferable skills that you want to highlight. So even if, let's say, your academic background, you studied biology in your undergraduate degree, and you want to go into policy, right? It's still, you're still going to have skills and experiences from your academic background that will transfer. They want to see that you have the skills and experience, that you are motivated to study. If you have any prior experience in that field, though, of course, that would be really good to list. So going back to my example, if you studied biology, but you want to go into policy, and you're like, these are unrelated, graduate schools are really excited to see that you have taken initiative to learn about policy, right? So maybe you have taken some online courses, some MOOCs, massive open online courses about policy. Maybe you did a certificate program to learn about this, or maybe you attended some lectures or talks. Maybe you went to a conference about policy. So they want to see that you have some initiative and some interest. This is also why the personal statement is really important. It is going to highlight why you're pivoting. Why did you, when previously you don't have an academic background in this field, why are you pivoting? So you want to give some compelling reasons as to why you have this passion for this graduate program topic. Only listing the relevant information would make us seem more inferior than we actually are. Absolutely. So that's why I advocate for not just listing things that are relevant to the topic of the graduate program, but it should be comprehensive, right? I'd only cut things out if there's a limit to the page number and I can't fit anything. Otherwise, I would absolutely include everything else. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. You can find me, I think you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Claire Lee. If you type it, Claire Lee, English Language Fellow, you should find me on LinkedIn there, and send me a request if you are interested. Thank you so much, everyone. Once again, you can find this session presentation through the QR code, and it will also be posted on the U.S. Embassy YouTube channel. And thanks for your patience as those are being posted, but they're taking a little bit of time since there is a kind of long wait of postings.